Hello, my name is Tucker Johnson, and we together are experiencing NIMSY Live, where we talk about the latest and the greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, culturalization, and all that fun stuff global companies need to delight their international customers, or at least not to piss them off too much. On this program, we like to invite guests who have fun or have some value to add. We are always eager to provide a platform to those with a good story or a good data set, and today we have both. So let us know if there are any topics you'd like covered or guests we should reach out to for future episodes. If you are not already subscribed or following NIMSY Insights, we are coming to you live today on LinkedIn, where the main event is. We're also simultaneously casting to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, I believe. So whatever your platform of choice is, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you'll be first to be notified when we come out with new events like this, or when we publish new research through NIMSY Insights. Now, speaking of research, I'd just like to give a quick plug to all of the research that the team over at NIMSY Insights has been putting out recently. They've been on a roll. If you have not checked out our Lessons in Localization series, it is a great series that goes through brands that you've heard of, some brands that you haven't heard of, and we talk to them, we figure out what are the processes, what are the technologies, how do they organize their teams, and basically how do they set up their localization programs. So if you kind of want to see how it's done on the other side of the fence, it's a great series for you to check out. Also, I'd just like to mention Multilingual Magazine's coming out with a new magazine pretty soon. As many of you know, this year they've gone to monthly publications. I just received, I'm getting it a little bit late, I just received my last one. So if you're not subscribed to Multilingual and you like to keep up to date on what's going on in the industry, as well as just read interesting thought pieces about translation, localization, and cultures from around the world, make sure to go check out Multilingual Magazine and subscribe before that next issue comes out. Lastly, and we were just talking here in our little virtual green room about the upcoming events that we have going on in our industry. And as you guys know, because you read the title of this event, we're talking to some folks from Taos today, and Taos has their event coming up, which, oh my gosh, is it not in, there it is. Is it in October, Anne-Maj? Are we missing something here? It's in October.
It's in October. If it's not there, we should give you all the details, of course.
I think it's right here, October 11th, the Taos.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Taos Massively Multilingual Conference and Expo down in San Jose. So if you're not familiar with this, nimsy.com/events will take you to our events page, and you can see all of the upcoming events, including NIMSY Lives, including Taos conferences. Now, we're going to do this a little bit differently today because we're talking about technology and machine translation and edit distances and BLEU scores and a bunch of other stuff that I can only pretend to know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to largely be turning over the scene here to our friends over at Taos, and I'd just like to introduce Anne-Maj from Taos. Anne-Maj is the VP of Strategic Partnerships for Taos, and many of you know, if you know NIMSY, you know Taos. And if you know Taos, you know Anne-Maj. So I don't think any introduction is really necessary. But Anne-Maj, I'm going to turn it over to you, and maybe you can introduce yourself, and you can introduce Taos, and introduce our guest today.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tucker. Anne-Maj van der Meer. I was kind of born into Taos. I've been with the company from the very beginning. We were talking about events again just before we went live. We're excited to be meeting people in person again coming October. But of course, we're always happy to meet with people virtually like today and give you some more updates on the work that we've been doing. We've transitioned quite a bit in these past years. We were very much a think tank on top of all the latest innovations and research. But now we're a product company. We have a lot of data. We do the data work. And today we're talking about that with my colleague, Amir Kamran, who's the head of NLP at Taos, and Achim Ruopp, who's not with Taos, but we partner with his company, Polyglot Technology, for the evaluation part that we're talking about today. So before I give the floor to Amir and Achim, because as Tucker was saying, all these blue score metrics, data sets, golden standards, anything of that, we need to really talk to Amir and Achim. I'll just be introducing the topic a little bit more before we get into all these technicalities and the exciting results. So for those of you who are joining these NIMSY Live shows more and more, you might have seen that Amir and Jaap were presenting about DMT a while ago. So DMT, it's data enhanced machine translation. At Taos, ever since we were founded in 2005, we were all for machine translation. We've been really advocating and promoting it in the industry. Also, we've been very active on the data side ever since 2008, so only 3 years after our foundation, and even before actually the famous paper from the Google guys, The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Data. We actually already talked about the data. It's what helps these or data and algorithms together are the secret sauce. So we started this shared industry repository of data, and all with this aim to help the world communicate better. So now we're here. MT is here to stay. We've all been convinced, but we can do better. Maybe some of you have been reading our blog post. We recently published a new article with a Taos recipe on how we can do MT better, and this data enhancement layer is a big part of that. So let me just look at my notes. Yeah, we're excited to be talking about this today. We introduced this idea of data enhanced machine translation last time, but now we're back. We're not just talking the talk, but we're walking the walk. We've done experiments, we've trained the engines, and we are seeing that there are improvements on the engines with that extra layer of data. The data, it's not just any data, of course, it's highly specialized, carefully curated data sets. And then we are, of course, doing the evaluations to make sure what kind of improvements are there and how the improvements are on specific domains, specific language pairs. But I first want to give the floor to Amir, who will be talking more about how we are curating these data sets. So Amir, the data enhancement layer, you'll be talking a bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Anne-Maj, and thanks, Tucker, for inviting us. So let me maybe start with a little bit of kind of a repetition of what DMT is, because we already had a NIMSY Live about that, but I want to explain what is the actual problem that we are trying to solve here. So we all know that machine translation is now a big reality, and in the past few years, with the potential of neural models and the help of data science and all these massive multilingual models, a large number of language pairs are now available out of the box from all these big MT providers like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Systron, DeepL, you name it. But the real question here is, are these models good enough to fit every translation need or every user scenario? And the answer is no. These models are good generic models. They're trained with huge amount of data, but the quality is not right for every task. It is not good enough for every language pair. It is not production ready for specific domains. So should we stick to human translations then? Well, that is not feasible. It is way too expensive. It's time consuming. So what about post-editing? Is that a solution? In some cases, maybe. And this is what is currently happening as well. But it is still an expensive option. when you involve humans, definitely have to pay. And also, it is not fit for the real-time translation tasks. So the kind of translation needs emerging in the industry, most of them are real-time, and in most of the cases, the volume of the data is huge. So post-editing cannot really keep up with that. So what exactly is the solution? The solution is customization. We need specialized models adapted to work well for the specific scenarios, for the specific domains. And if we want to translate, for example, an informal chat session, then the model should be capable enough to add that flavor to the conversation, to the translation output. If we, let's say, there is a scenario about healthcare, the model should be adapted to translate medical terminology, for example. If it's organizational conversation, formal conversation, the translation should be according to that. So the good news is that most MD providers do support customization. But to customize any MT model, you need data, and not just data, but the relevant data, and relevant data to your specific task, relevant to your specific domain, and not just that, but high quality data. So you need relevant, high quality data and the right amount of data. So this is sometimes becomes the bottleneck, because the translation buyers or translation consumers who want to customize the MT models for a very specific task, they don't have this data. And this is where TAOs can do the magic, because we already have data. We have a huge amount of data for various domains, for various language pairs, and we can also produce high quality, relevant data for various domains and language pairs for low-end language pairs as well, for domains that are not that common. So we can produce the data for that as well. So all this data that we can produce is perfect to customize and adapt any MT model for a specific scenario. And that is why the name of our solution is Data Enhanced Machine Translation, or DEMT. So if you go to the next slide, you will see that is the summary of what I'm trying to explain, or maybe the third slide. So what we actually believe is that the industry can do better with the help of customization. There are so many opportunities of what we call zero-shot localization, where human in the loop is not feasible, and the volume of the translation is very large. The high-quality relevant data that we can produce and provide can improve the quality of MT systems from around 10 to 25%. We just have to come up with the right data work, and we have to design MT-centric data enhanced workflows to support the translation needs. So if you go to the next slide, you will see just what I explained in a summarized way, that we need basically end-to-end MT-centric workflows, so that you need the larger models, but you are not fully dependent on that, but you can add smaller components to customize things according to your needs. In the next slide, there is a more technical overview of how TAOs.
You're moving too fast for us dummies. No, keep
going. If you have
going.
any question, you can jump right in. No
just really quickly, point of clarification. I'm sorry if you already made this clear. The TAOs, the training data comes from TAOs, right? These are data sets that you guys have managed and curated. So this is kind of a big value add, because what that means is the people that are using the MT don't have to come up with their own high quality data sets to train the engines, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Actually, sometimes some of these organizations, they already have some translation memories, that their legacy translation memories they are building over time. But most of the time, these are not cleaned, these are not curated to basically use in a customization scenario.
Right.
So we
that's
can
exactly
actually
why
add.
I ask, because I know that's kind of a sticking point that prevents a lot of people from moving forward with this, just because it's a pain in the butt to get going.
Yeah. So we can not only provide the service to basically clean that, curate that, make them ready for the customization, but on top of that, we can add more data to that. So using the Taos repositories, because we have a lot of data already, we can see what kind of similar data that we have that can help in this scenario. Or if they have a limited amount of data, which we call a QD data set, we can use that and kind of divide that into multiple domains. So if they have a huge translation memory, they have built maybe with 10, 20 years, but the data is coming from different domains, we can separate that into task-specific domains, and then we can build a custom data set on top of that for each domain. So as I was explaining, that Taos is an aggregator of data because we have this data marketplace where we have a lot of legacy data that Taos has, accumulated from the last maybe 15 years. That is there. But on top of that, anyone that wants to sell data, they can just go there and upload their data, and that could become a part of this whole process, and they can get monetary reward out of that as well. So that is one place from where we can source the data. But then we also have this Taos human language platform where humans are working to produce data. So if there is a specific need, a specific scenario, a very specific niche where we have to generate something, we can just go to humans and ask them to generate that particular data set, and then we can use that also in the customization. Then we have some other avenues as well. We can crawl data and make sure that the crawling is high quality. It's not just random stuff. Then we can also source data from different places. We can license them and use that. So the idea is that we can do whatever we can to produce the high quality, relevant data set that can fit your needs. And then we can do the customization based on that. So in this technical diagram, what you can see is the steps that we take. So first is the generation of QE data set. Either it's coming from the client or we are generating it, but we have to clean it. We have to make sure that everything is right. Then using this QD data set, we can generate a larger training data set that we will then going to use for customization. And then we train the models depending on if the client has a very specific MT provider, we can just go there and train that one. Or we can actually train multiple different MT providers and come up with the best solution that is giving the best output. So, and this is what we did in our report as well. So if you go in the next slide, you will see some summary of what we did in the evaluation report to prove the point that this data work really pay off. We trained ourselves 30 data sets for 3 different domains. And in each domain, you have different language pairs. So for example, for medical, we have 18 language pairs. For e-commerce, we have 8. For financial, we have 4. And we showed that in majority of the cases, we are able to get 10 to 25% improvement over the normal generic out-of-the-box model. And this is the thing that we believe that can change the translation scenario, where you can actually directly use the customized model and plug it into your translation workflow without a human to basically post-edit it. And so what we did is we went for a external evaluation where Achim comes in. So I think, Achim, you can take over from here to explain how we evaluated all these data sets and generated this report.
Yeah, thanks, Amir, and thanks, Tucker, for inviting me to this webcast. Yeah, so as Amir pointed out, Taos curated all this data and wanted to make sure they get an independent analysis of the results, and that's what I provided.
Yeah, let's call that out really quickly. Like, this isn't a Taos reporting on Taos quality output. Achim, tell us a little bit about polyglot technology. Achim?
Yeah,
What you doing
so
over there?
Polyglot Technology is a consultancy for helping people with machine translation, kind of using the data they have in the best way, and also setting up people and processes to use machine translation in the best way, and that it covers all kind of scenarios from post-editing machine translation, but also use of raw machine translation, which is possible in many cases. And
It's
also
polyglot.technology.
Polyglot,
www.polyglot.technology. If you guys want to
yeah,
go check that out.
pretty long TLD here, but it includes the name of the company. So and then one thing I focused on over the last 2 years was increasingly evaluation, because I saw that kind of the generic engines, as Amir pointed out, probably don't deliver the right quality for many scenarios, but it's also not known what quality they're delivering. And then when it comes to customization, there's also a lot of variety. So you have customization options with parallel data or translation memories virtually for kind of, I would say, half the solutions now, but you have to really check on the results of the outcome. And that's something that also Taos takes care of with the curation and the cleaning up of the data and separating it out by domains and doing the training with different customization options. And that's a lot of work, but also you have to really evaluate if this is working for your case or not. And I think that's so. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was crawling some data from the CDC website. So the CDC website has all COVID information available in, let me see if I can recall them all. So English, obviously, Spanish, but then also Vietnamese, Chinese, and I think it was Korean. I forgot the fifth one.
Tagalog, Russian, Armenian. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
Those government, they have lists, and they
Yeah, it was a kind of interesting selection, and I think there's a reason why that combination. It depends on, I think, the population of speakers that they decided on, and they published this information, and I made these data sets available for free. So this basically the translation data from the CDC. And then I also customized an engine, specifically Google Auto ML translation, and that showed that for these languages, the customized solution worked better than the generic version. But then a little bit after that, there was also many people worked on COVID-specific data. There were some test sets compiled by an initiative called Tycho 19, and that they then published test sets, and they were actually 3 different. So the medical domain is kind of very broad. Medical, pharmacy, pharmaceuticals, healthcare is a very broad domain in terms of the types of content you have there. So you can have research publications in different languages. You can have kind of just healthcare information like the CDC website. And then you can also have healthcare conversations, so transcribed speech. So it's quite different. So they published those test sets, and then I verified my customized engines against those other test sets. So this other translation data, and it didn't quite perform as well. So that shows that it's really important to verify that when you do customization, that it actually does work, and you have some held out test data, and you verify that the solution works. And I think there were some other studies too that Taos worked on some COVID specific test data, and they published that test data, and then Intento did a study with it, and they kind of came to similar results where they said, yeah, sometimes the customization works better for some language pairs, and sometimes the generic engine works best for another language
Taos
pair.
has a bunch of stuff, and I just encourage anybody that's watching this, taos.net, check out their blog, check out all the research that they're publishing. Even if you don't have a need for data solutions right now, like, they publish really cool stuff over there, so go check that out. And I just also want to acknowledge in the comments, I see you, Sarah asked the question, which is the question that we always have to answer when we're talking about machine translation. Do you think machine translation can replace human translations? Let's put a pin in that, and we'll come back to that after we get through what our topics today, but we will address that.
Yeah, and I think I'll get a little bit to that in my first slide.
All right, that's my cue. I need to
bring it up.
I need to get back on my game here. Where did the slides go? Bam.
So I think the point of that slide is also machine translation can help human translators.
Yeah, so what this is, especially
we have
those that are watching or listening to this, perhaps as a podcast, sorry, this is a scene-heavy NIMSY Live today. So if you are listening as a podcast, try to check us out on YouTube. But this shows a graph showing the edit distance, which is, or the BLEU score. I thought it was edit distance, right? Yeah, the BLEU score and the edit distance. So post-editing speed for different machine translation systems. The worst systems translations, MT9, took on average 5.03 seconds per word to edit. The best systems translations, MT1, took 4.06 seconds per word to edit. Sorry, I'll shut up again. Yeah. Back to you, Achim.
Let me try to. So this is actually from a book that was, I think, that's more of an academic book. I actually teach machine translation at university, so I remember that from my teaching. And this is a study that Philip Cohn did with some additional authors. I think it went 2016, and that's when kind of the machine translation quality got to a level where it can be used for post-editing, where it's not too annoying to correct all those machine translation errors. And they did a study with different post-editors, and they used different MT systems that had different levels of BLEU score, and we can talk about scoring in a bit, whether the BLEU score is something that's always kind of, there's some controversy, but actually last month was the 20-year anniversary of the BLEU score.
Well, that tells you right there what you need to know. Okay, sorry, I'm getting my opinions out of it, but
so that shows you that it has a lasting impact, at least in academia and also in industry. But the point of this chart is basically the higher the BLEU score, the shorter post-editor takes to edit a translation. But it's not just about efficiency, and we can, I think there's still a lot to be said about whether you should use post-editing, and that's something for some material you probably should not, or for many types of materials like books, literary works, and so on, you should not use post-editing. But there's a lot of material where it makes sense when you need this human quality level translation, but you have material that is very kind of repetitive, or it kind of is very similar to material that you translated earlier, and that's where you might have data already to kind of give to Taos and then create a custom system from it. There it does make sense. And then the question becomes, how do you use it in the most efficient way? And this chart just shows the higher the quality of the MT system, the better from an efficiency point of view. But it also, I think, there's an aspect of it makes the post editors happier. So I think, I mean, we in a couple of years back we had bad MT systems that were kind of just atrocious to work with, and that also might basically that kind of burned in the memory of like, oh, for many translators, their machine translation is bad and shouldn't be used as a draft translation for human quality level translations. But I think this has also changed with the advent of neural machine translation. So better quality, better MT quality helps post editing a lot, and this is what also this study was about. How can we make MT better for different domains? And that's where customization comes in, like Taos DMT. So here are the charts. Amir already talked about the different language pairs that were evaluated, 8 for the e-commerce domain and 4 for financial domain. And yellow is always DMT. And then what I also evaluated with the 7 test sets that were selected by Taos from this human translation data that Taos has available, these repositories, and they evaluated also Amazon Translate, Google Translate, and Microsoft Translator. And you can see here the differences in BLEU score for the different language pairs. I mean, one thing I want to point out is there's always kind of language pair differences. For some language pairs, the difference is a lot. For others, it isn't. So you kind of always need to look at the language pair or pairs that you want to translate. What else want to do? And this is basically the basis of what Amir showed earlier. Over the worst performing engine on average, over the worst performing engine from these 4 MT options, there's generally a 25% increase. And then over the average of all engines, there's 11% increase in BLEU score with Taos DEMT. Yeah, and this is the medical pharma domain. Sorry, that's probably not as legible because there's more language pairs. So it kind of gets a little crammed.
More motivation for people. I put a link down in the comments here on LinkedIn. More motivation for y'all to go over and get your own copy of the report from Taos's website. And I'm sure they have all of these graphs in there as well.
Yes, indeed. And then one question might come up: why use the BLEU score? We mentioned already that's 20 years in the making, and I think just a couple of days ago there was a discussion on. I don't know if I should mention Slater here on NIMTZ.
Oh, mention Slater. We love Slater. We're all friends. We're all adding value to the industry.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a discussion about that how Facebook evaluated. They published this system. This was on a research site that can translate 100 languages from one language to the other. So massively multilingual. And there was some discussion about how the BLEU score was employed there. And I think that came down to a lot of issues with the BLEU score are connected to how the text is tokenized. So tokenization is somewhere where you separate the punctuation from the words, and there's different kinds of tokenization. You can even split words into subword levels, and then Facebook used different methods to evaluate different language pairs, I believe, and then there was basically this discussion that they are comparing apples to bananas, or what they said, and that is true. And we made sure that when we did this evaluation that we used there's an open source tool called Sacre Bleu, was it's mainly developed by academia, and that takes care of this tokenization. So we want to make sure that the tokenization is correct, and then that we get the correct BLEU scores there. And when you do this in a consistent way, you can trust BLEU scores. I mean, there is something to be said when the BLEU scores just differ by a tiny bit, then it's sometimes not as meaningful. But if the BLEU scores differ by 5 BLEU points, you can definitely say, yeah, this is the better engine or the worse engine that you want to when you want to use that, and that helps you then to select an engine that is better for post editing or other uses.
So go check it out. Check out that article on Slater, or you can also read about it on multilingual.com. There's my plug. There's my passive-aggressive plug for multilingual.com. So pick your poison.
Yes.
Slater, multilingual,
yes,
both.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
There's no such thing as too much knowledge in our industry. Sorry, I had to get that in. Let's go. I'll get this out of here.
So then I wanted to plug something here too. So we did this study with those 3 different domains and 18. Sorry, what was it? 30. Well, I think 18 language pairs at a maximum, or 8 or 4.
This is 24.
So this is a different. So what this motivated? So I already talked about the COVID data, and then this study, and what polyglot technology is now doing. Also, I talked about that. You really don't know the generic engines. Often you don't. If you have a smaller project, it might be cost prohibitive to do a customization, but you don't know which generic system. If you have DeepL and Google and Microsoft and Amazon, and there are more providers. I think DeMT has a good list of MT providers and what options they provide. So, but I think in kind of Europe and Americas, these are kind of the big online providers, and this is what you would choose from for a certain language pair. So you have maybe a list of language pairs you want to translate for your project, but you don't really know which generic engine to pick. And I thought that was kind of a gap that I wanted to fill. In academic evaluations, they always they omit the names of the providers. They say online system A, online system B, and C, but they don't publish which one's which. So what we're doing at Polyglot Technology is using those test sets that academia is typically using, and those standard evaluation tools, and doing evaluation of those 4 online engines, and then basically determining which one's the best engine for which language pair. And then, as we described earlier, of course, if you want to do a domain-specific, if you want to translate in a specific domain, you should go with DMT. So provide a description of the domain to TAOs with some data. It might be preferable to provide some data, and then TAOs can create custom MT systems, or you use one of those pre-made customized systems for financial domain or medical pharma.
Yeah, I look at DMT and Anne-Maj, Amir, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it seems to me it's kind of like an add-on. Like if you go and buy a car, it's like, what features do you want with the car? Do you want to pay extra for a really cool stereo system? Do you want to pay extra for air conditioning, whatever, and all of that stuff? And you can get the base model and you can get the add-ons. And it's kind of like just getting the add-ons. If you're buying a car, which is machine translation, and you can just add these on and get more features and more value out of it. And the alternative is, like, you build your own damn car. And I think that's what people don't want to do, is build their own machine, customize and train their own engines. Those of you out there that are listening to this that have done that before or worked with the client, helped the client to do that before, know exactly why you don't want to do that, because it can quickly become cost prohibitive, which is eating into your ROI on that.
Yeah, maybe probably Amir has more to say, but indeed it's DMT, it's this extra layer. So especially for companies who don't have a lot of data, we have the data, so we can help there. It's also for companies who have a lot of content to translate. There's a lot of content that just is not translated because there is too much work. That extra layer of Taos DMT can help translate all that content, or help you translate if you don't have the data yourself. But maybe Amir, you want to add more onto that? Yeah.
Actually, I would say I would modify the analogy that you gave. So it's not just an add-on, but maybe if you are driving a cheap car, then it might be a bumpy ride. There will be more chances of accidents. So we are adding quality to that so that your drive is more smooth and you have less chances of failures.
I love it. Much better analogy. I told you I'm not good at this kind of stuff. So we have one more slide here, or two more slides. I just want to get through these because this would be a kind of a good, let's get through the slides. So what do we have here? This is a lot of text. So
this is just this is part of. So we provide for Taos DMT evaluation report. We provide a summary report, but you can also request a detailed report for a language pair, and that has more information in there. And yes, that's probably not visible, but you can then get an analysis. So you have the human level translations here with source and reference.
So you can kind of audit it, basically.
And then basically you can see the difference between the in this case, I think it was Amazon and the customized version of Amazon. So you can actually see which textual difference so you just don't just see the score difference, but also the text difference. And this is kind of I pointed out that benchmark that Polyglot is working on, and for those 24 language pairs. So that's a broader benchmark than the 18 language pairs for more generic data. And then basically I distilled this into a ranking of for these 24 language pairs. So check out, there's a blog post on the Polyglot, the latest blog post on the Polyglot website. And that has a ranking, basically distilled this into a ranking of, yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little slow here.
No, don't worry.
Polyglot Doc Technology.
Yeah, that's the index when you go, no, the first one up on the top. There.
Oh, MT Decider Index.
Yeah.
I'll drop a link for it into LinkedIn if people want to go.
So that shows which language pairs were analyzed, and then basically I ranked them all and compile these to distill those rankings in an overall ranking. And so basically this is what, if you choose just one engine, not per language pair, if you choose one engine for this 24 language pairs, which one should you pick as the highest quality one? And that's currently it's Google Translate. But these rankings also change over time, right? So DeepL, for example, they introduced some new language pairs like Turkish and Indonesian. And the big MT providers, they have big research teams and development teams, and they're trying to compete with each other to improve the quality. So I think, and that's what we also did with the evaluation report. We did one in December 2020 and now in June 2022. And with polyglot technology, with the benchmark, we are going to publish that every quarter, so you can actually see, well, now for this language pair, maybe Microsoft did a lot of work on their code and their data, and that then improved over the other ones. So
make sure to send that over to, Multilingual does free press releases. So when you do cool stuff like that, send it over to Multilingual, and we can help you get the word out there, or they can help you get the word out there. Or come back on NMZ Live and we can talk about it.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to be back.
I think the important thing to know is that indeed, as Achim was saying, these models are changing constantly as well. They are doing their own work. But what is quite exciting about the Taos DMT, if it's my humble opinion, is that that extra layer of data always improves. Or always improves. We choose the right combination of the data set and the engine to give you the best possible MT output. So that's kind of the power of DMT and the promise of DMT. Just wanted to add that to everything that has been said so far.
Yeah, I think this takes us to, because I'm just watching the clock here. Let's get back. I am not done yet, Sweet Pea. Give me a sec. This takes us back to our question here in the comments. The question when it comes to machine translation, which is, when will machine translation reach human parity? Right? How is it there yet with DEMT? So whoever wants to go take this one first. How long do the translators have until they are completely out of jobs and destitute on the streets? Who's the brave soul that's going to answer this question?
Maybe I can start. So, yeah, I believe that it's more about different scenarios. So in some scenarios, you can, you're always on the back, like you don't want to use empty straight away because the risk is so high that if some mistakes are there, then it could potentially maybe take a life or something. So there you will be very cautious to basically just go with MT. You need some human post-editing or review or something. But the kind of scenarios we are talking about is a scenario, for example, where you want to translate a live chat system. And there you only have two options. Either you will provide translation or you will not provide translation. So there we are saying that with a very customized engine, there is a better chance that you can achieve a very good quality, human-like quality, and you can really use something in production with a very customized data-enhanced model. And these kind of stuffs are now more and more common because of the social media, because of all the information that we are getting on daily basis. And for that, humans are already insufficient because you cannot use so many humans to translate this massive amount of data in localization and in other scenarios. So their MT is already replacing humans, and with small tweaks and with customization, with better data, you can actually achieve the human parity even now.
That is extremely well put. I don't know if I'd want to follow that.
Well, maybe just to add on, of course, that there will always be a need for humans in the translation industry.
Amen.
Because to get that very high quality data, work is needed. So maybe translators can diversify their skills, add on some data management skills. Of course, post-editing will be around for quite a while. So these are things that will make the profession of a translator, I think, even more exciting as well. It's not a constant repetitive work. All the boring work will be done by the machines. And as human, you can be more creative and have more diversified work days, I would say. And maybe, Achim, there was something I think you wanted to add as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, defining human parity is very tricky, and as we talked about earlier, is we can always define the quality by project, and you can have certain glossaries and style guides that describe the quality along with some data that you then evaluate. So that's very tricky to say. And then maybe in one, maybe if the MT system is translating boring, I'm saying, of course, nothing is really boring, but some technical documentation, then maybe the MT system will do as good a job or almost as good as a job as a human translator. But I mean, that's not what human translators should really. Maybe that kind of work goes away, and there's more interesting transcreation material that can be worked on by translators. I think one example that I always mention that where MT is kind of helps with the post editing, the better if you want to use that for the type of content. But also there are some scenarios where MT can create more work for human translators. So I always cite e-discovery, where there's thousands of documents that have to be translated in a short amount of time for a lawsuit, and they get discovered which ones should be translated. So out of these thousands of documents that then can only be machine translated in a short amount of time, the lawyers pick maybe 100 or so that are then human translated or post edited. And in this case, those translations wouldn't be happening, maybe, or maybe not as many of them, if there was no machine translation.
Well, and maybe since we've been inserting little pitches here and there, I want to just pitch our conference one more time, because we will have some of the big MT gurus presenting about, first of all, the massively multilingual models, that brute force that the big IT companies are bringing with them, but also on evaluating MT, human parity, but also the limits of MT. So all of this will be discussed in detail with the experts in San Jose. So if you're still deciding on your plans for the fall, then join us there to talk more about it.
And where can people find out more about the conference? Where can they sign up for that?
Let me share a link in the LinkedIn
oh, good. Yeah,
chat.
That saves me from having to do it.
Very
nice.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're coming up on time here. I thank you very much, and thanks, Anne-Maj, for hosting my show today, essentially, and providing the whole outline. Anne-Maj, Amir, Achim, pleasure to have you on. Amir, you're a second time guest, so it's an elite club. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me again. Yeah.
I just want to call out here that in the chat, you guys all gave very well thought out and very considerate responses to when will human translation and machine translation become equal. I just have to call out here Jeff Allen in the comments. Says, Tucker, my answer to MT reaching human level is around 2265 AD when Captain Kirk arrives with the Starship Enterprise and the Universal Translator. That is sci-fi. It's better to focus on using MT to get tasks done and do it well. Very, very succinctly put, Jeff, on that. So with that, thank you. Thank you to all of our guests here. Thank you to everybody in the comments. I'm going to start taking us out here. This has been NIMSY Live. We've been experiencing NIMSY Live together. All the stuff. I don't have my script here, but join us next time when I don't think we have a next time on the calendar. This has been it. But if you like this and you like hearing more about translation, localization, all of that stuff, make sure to subscribe to NIMSY. Follow us here on LinkedIn so that you'll be up to date. I will be posting a new hashtag Workshop Wednesday, which will be in 2 weeks. My colleague Nika Aliverdi will be discussing nonviolent communication is the topic of that workshop. So if you're subscribed to NIMSY, then you will get notified when we do that. And big thanks to my co-host here, my daughter Michaela, who has been joining us in the background and is very excited to go to the swimming pool. So I better get out of here. With that, and because of that, I'm going to skip all of the formalities and wish you a good day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
Thank you.
We don't see you anymore, but I guess we're
You don't see me. This is the outro party.
good.
And they
Well-
can still hear us. So bye guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wait.
Good day.